So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining me to listen to this talk. I'm really honored to see this privileged group of people here. What I'll be presenting today is actually a collection of different works, and I have 4 other colleagues worked with me, contributed to the work at different stages, and we also have two funders allowing me actually to be here in person, and these are Society of Actuaries and SCORE Foundation for Science. So my talk today is all about breast cancer risk, and hope you can just bear yourself because I'll just repeat this wording again and again. So hope you can really forgive me. So we focus on breast cancer risk. Why? This is because breast cancer is the most common cancer diagnosed in women, and also it is still one of the leading causes of death. And we have 2 particular research interests here. One is to quantify the impact of COVID-19 related health disruptions on breast cancer mortality, to be specific, initial health disruptions on breast cancer mortality. And the second related research interest is to see the model we developed as part of that study to see how it is performing when it comes to applications in the context of life insurance. We try to see and understand if our model has been doing enough good job leading to insightful results. So before talking about our model and showing our results, I would like to share what we already know about breast cancer risk. So we were very lucky in the past years, and we had a chance to collect a number of different data sets from Office for National Statistics, also known as ONS, representing the Statistical Institute of the UK. So the data we collected is stratified by the deprivation deciles of each region of England, apart from the usual variables such as age, year, and gender. What we are looking at is, based on this particular data, in 2017, and the results presented in this very figure is based on a Bayesian hierarchical model. So what we are looking at is 8 standardized fitted breast cancer incidence in the least and most deprived deciles of England in regions of England in particular. And here, if I can't make, so we see an equality line. This tells us if the rates in the most and least deprived deciles in a given region were equal to each other, then we would expect them to appear on the equality line. Yet we see they appear above the equality line, showing us the higher incidence rates happen to be in the least deprived deciles of each region in England. So apart from this, we also observe regional variations where we observe higher incidences in the south of England compared to the north of England. So this tells us there are socioeconomic and regional differences in breast cancer morbidity. However, I must note that these are less relevant as compared to a lifestyle cancer, which is, for instance, lung cancer. And also here it is relevant to mention the availability of national cancer screening, which is allowing early cancer detection, of course, and this is accounted for the higher incidences in the least deprived deciles or in the south of England as well. So the following figure is showing us 8 standardized breast cancer mortality rates in 2019. Now, this figure is not split by deprivation because deprivation is not found to be significant to explain mortality, breast cancer mortality data. That's why it is only split by regions. Again, we see higher incidences in the south of England, shown by darker shades of purple. So what we learned so far is, well, socioeconomic differences exist when it comes to breast cancer incidence, but we only refer regional differences in breast cancer mortality. And these are, again, less relevant as compared to lifestyle cancers. And I may perhaps add that these results, these statistical results we quantified and found, are aligned with the medical literature suggesting less controllable or preventable risk factors when it comes to breast cancer. So, of course, all this brings us to the point that we could appreciate the importance of early cancer diagnosis that could only come with availability of breast cancer screening, and this is the event interrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'll briefly show what happened during the pandemic years in England. in particular. So what happened now here, what I'm showing you is breast cancer incidence on the left and breast cancer mortality on the right by age now, up to the most recent calendar years, which is 2020 in the incidence data and 2021 in the mortality data. So we observe breast cancer to be a bigger risk from age 50 onwards in the incidence data. And we, at the same time, see a steady increase in breast cancer incidence up to 2019 with a sharp decline in the first year of the pandemic. And this is as low as 25% at age 60, 64 as compared to the same period in 2019. Now, if you look at the mortality data in parallel, we see a steady decrease at different age groups. And after 2019, in the last 2 consecutive years, we see some increases in breast cancer mortality as compared to, again, the same period in 2019. And this can be as high as 7% from age 65 onwards. Now, because the impact in 2020 and 2021 is visible, observable for older age groups, we quantified the impact from age 65 onwards. Of course, we need a model for this. What we use as modeling purposes is a multi-state model, to be specific, a semi-Markov model. And this is an age-specific model to start with because we have more equality in breast cancer risk. And what we are looking at, So what we are looking at here is, we have a 6-state model. And the initial state is state 0, where women are assumed to be undiagnosed or undetected, actually, with breast cancer. And we have 2 causes of death here. The first one is breast cancer, and the second one is other causes. And we account for cancer stage in this modeling framework, and also we are differentiating between observed and unobserved breast cancer cases. And how to do so is, of course, is related to the definition of breast cancer staging information to start with. Breast cancer has a well-defined staging model, changing from stage 1 to stage 4. And stage 4, which is the latest stage of breast cancer, also known metastatic breast cancer, is distinctively different than the rest. Because of this, we basically define this under stage 3, shown as metastatic diagnosed. And we group the rest of the breast cancer stage 1 to 3, under pre-metastatic diagnosed and stage 1. So by doing this, of course, we are ignoring intermediate staging of breast cancer model, but this is appropriate or aligned with the medical literature when provided we are just differentiating the last stage. And because of this, we also assume breast cancer deaths could only happen after developing metastatic breast cancer. So one important thing as part of this model is to introduce this stage 2, called pre-metastatic undiagnosed. And in this way, we actually do something, how to say it? So since this is undiagnosed, it means it is unobservable. So we are basically accounting something not really measured. And this alone, this state, is allowing us then to quantify the COVID impact as well. So I'll explain the difference, but before this, please be aware the rates of transition from stage 1 and stage 2 are also duration dependent, apart from being age dependent, making the whole system to be a semi-Markov model. And we assume that breast cancer treatment could be available in stage 1, but not in stage 2, putting a natural relationship shown in the 3rd bullet point. One last thing about this model is we define the onset of breast cancer depending on the moves from stage 0 to stage 1 and stage 2. And this is defined in the second bullet point here. The summation of these 2 rates of transition is defining the onset of breast cancer, which is new breast cancer cases, denoted by mu star. Provided we have this stage 2 here, it means we need some parameterization because this is not observable. So we are using the onset of breast cancer for this sake. We are introducing an alpha parameter here to differentiate between these 2 rates of transition to stage 1 and 2. So in this way, we are defining these two rates of transition to state 1 and 2, depending on the onset of breast cancer. And also, we are introducing a beta parameter here. And in this way, we are defining the rates of transition from state 2 to state 3 based on something observable. This is a progression of metastatic breast cancer, provided someone diagnosed with pre-metastatic breast cancer at some stage. So let me move on. Okay, this is showing, this table is showing us the key rates of transition in our model. And the rates are defined between age 30 to 89. So the second and third columns here are associated with breast cancer incidence and other cause mortality. And this is based on our data, the population data of England. The last column is related to breast cancer mortality, and the information is coming from a medical literature. And the information related to the average metastasis rates, meaning the progression of metastatic breast cancer, is again coming from a medical literature. So to validate, to understand if our model is working, we quantified net cancer breast cancer survival following the definition of Office for National Statistics, because there are more than one definition. And here what we are looking at is breast cancer survival from pre-metastatic breast cancer on the left and metastatic breast cancer on the right over 10 years. Now this is showing us a high survival from pre-metastatic breast cancer at different insured age groups changing between 30 to 60, and significantly lower breast cancer survival from metastatic breast cancer. However, the rates are decreasing over time. We see an unusual, perhaps, pattern from pre-metastatic breast cancer survival, showing higher survival from, well, at all the age groups here. So this phenomenon here is considered to be linked to the type of breast cancer developed by younger women that could be more lethal and more aggressive. And also, the other reason is the screening age groups. In the UK, it is between 47 to 73, so younger age groups are missing the opportunity to have an early diagnosis. And on the right-hand side, we see the usual age pattern with rapidly decreasing survival. So provided this, now we are confident to move into the pandemic model. And to create the pandemic model, we make two significant changes in the model. This is associated with an increase in other cause mortality linked to COVID-19 deaths, and the other assumption is a decline in breast cancer diagnosis. Of course, alongside, we assume an increase in undiagnosed cases to keep the onset of breast cancer unchanged before and after the pandemic. So you see some numbers here in this table between different periods. The calibration is made starting from January the 1st, 2020 for about 5 years. And the numbers inside related to key transition intensities are coming from the empirical evidence provided by Public Health Scotland and Public Health England. Now we have a couple of results. The first part is related to occupancy probabilities. There are different parts of it, but I would like to concentrate on this. These are the probabilities, occupancy probabilities for healthy women, saying from stage 0. And we have pre-pandemic and post-pandemic results. And I highlighted some of the columns. So the last two, pink and orange ones, are associated with the deaths from breast cancer and other causes. I'll talk about this a bit later. Let's look at these two first. So the first highlighted column here is showing us a decline in pre-metastatic breast cancer cases changing between 3 to 6% at age 65 to 89. Alongside, we see an increase changing between 3 to 5% in metastatic breast cancer cases. And if I move on, I will tell you that the occupancy probabilities are versatile. It could be possible to transform them into excess deaths or additional deaths, and also years of life expectancy type measures. So this is what we are looking at for different causes. And I'll just focus on the breast cancer one. So if you look at the second column here, apologies, the third actually, we see excess deaths changing between 6 to 10 at different age groups from breast cancer, and this is associated with an increase changing between 3 to 6%. And alongside this also means an increase in years of life expectancy loss changing between 35 to 193 for these particular age groups. So we have an application as last part of this presentation. We looked at two types of products, life insurance products, one as a specialized critical illness insurance and the other one is a specialized life insurance contract. We introduced the wording of specialized to highlight we are only considering breast cancer risk here. And we assume that there would be a benefit to be payable at the time of an event. And this event is defined to be a breast cancer diagnosis or death from other causes in the critical illness insurance. And death and the event in the life insurance contract is defined to be a death from any causes, basically. We also think a third type here, which is a life insurance contract, but we are trying to show the ability of the model, and our model now could allow us to quantify insurance premiums for women with pre-metastatic breast cancer, and we thought it could be just useful to see how large the premiums could be, and also whether it could be possible to think different underwriting options to make this women take the benefit of such products. So now what we are looking at here is net single premiums or actuarial premiums per £1,000 at different age groups, different insured age groups changing between 35 to 60. We are looking at two different insurance products. One is a whole life insurance on the left, and the other one is a short-term product, 10-year life insurance and critical illness insurance. So altogether, they are presented. So the thing is, the premiums are, of course, are bigger for an older age group. Perhaps something interesting is the premiums from based on different contracts are converging somewhat for a whole life insurance product when the age is increased. So the main uptake is the net single premiums of a critical illness insurance contract for a woman with no breast cancer is always higher than the net premiums of a life insurance contract for a woman, again, with no breast cancer. If you compare the life insurance premiums for two women, one as having a breast cancer at the time of purchase, but like a pre-metastatic breast cancer diagnosed at the time of purchase, and a woman with no breast cancer, now then the results are they look significantly different from each other. So the premiums for the women with pre-metastatic diagnosis at the time of purchase is now red, no, apologies, it is green solid line. And the other one is, I'm trying to see actually, so it is orange one in the bottom. So there is a big difference. So we thought whether it could be possible to reduce the risk somewhat by eliminating some of the years. So we know, medically speaking, the first 5 years of the cancer diagnosis is the most riskiest. So this is the highest risk time period to develop a metastatic breast cancer that could lead to a death. So if we could eliminate this and then insure the women, then what we could see actually a drop. A drop such as this one. So I'm comparing as the green solid line with now dashed purple line as eliminating the first 5 years for the corresponding women before insuring the person. So that could then lead to more affordable, perhaps, premiums, and also eliminating the risk from an insurer's point of view together. So we have carried out an extensive sensitivity analysis by changing our parameterization. This included change in breast cancer diagnosis, alpha parameter associated with lower and higher breast cancer diagnosis. We also chose a beta parameter that is associated with worse, better breast cancer treatment. We changed the level of breast cancer mortality and also the interest rates to see how results changed overall. The results remained consistent in the sense to make relative comparisons. However, of course, the modeling is sensitive in terms of alpha and beta parameter choices. One last slide, apologies for this. And this is the summary. So we just examined breast cancer risk, where we identified and confirmed there is more equality in breast cancer risk from an actuarial point of view as well. And we actually developed a valuable model that could account for different health systems in different countries. By changing alpha and beta parameters, it could be possible to imagine how different health systems could behave and what type of differences this could lead in terms of a pandemic-related impact on cancer mortality. We see mild to medium-term impact on breast cancer deaths. And we also carried out a bunch of calculations to see how the overall premiums could change if we could include the last 2 years after the pandemic. So this only did lead a change less than 1% compared to the results I provided now. And last and importantly, we believe duration dependence really matters in applications, in actuarial applications, while quantifying these sort of while accounting for this type of breast cancer or any type of cancer actually. What we haven't done so far is accounting for model and parameter uncertainty in the most traditional statistical sense. So thank you, and more results, details can be found in the following papers. Thank you.
Thanks, Ayse. Thank you, Ayse. We have a couple of minutes for questions, so maybe one or two. So I see a few questions have come through for the previous session, so we'll come to them at the Q&A at the end. Is there a question from the audience on this presentation? Or come through the app? Yes, I'll come over.
Do you think that the COVID itself fast-tracked the way cancer developed in people, and it led to higher mortality rather than breast cancer itself? Like any linkage between COVID, people being diagnosed with COVID and having breast cancer?
Together?
Yeah.
Well, the published studies already show that cancer patients having COVID at the same time have become more vulnerable, and they experience highly possibly deaths from COVID or other causes during the process.
So that will go into other causes in your study?
Yes, that could go there, but we didn't account it here. So we only accounted for the impact of initial health disruptions on breast cancer mortality for mainly women having no breast cancer at the beginning. So the assumption, or what we were interested in, was to see what is the impact of basically missing the opportunity of diagnosing someone developing cancer in the meantime and leading to a basically shift to later diagnosis. So what is the impact of this on the overall mortality? But if the person is already having the cancer a long way, then having the COVID, then it's definitely more vulnerable, but we didn't quantify this. It could be possible though.
We've got one question on the app. How long do you think the effects of COVID on breast cancer will last before trends return to normal?
Oh, well, so there is a tricky question. So I'll tell you what we have done, what I am currently doing. So if you look at the published studies, they suggest the short-term impact could last for about 5 years. and some studies suggest 10 years in terms of excess deaths that could be observable. So what we currently do is to quantify the overall impact for about 18 years using the available data, where we see we are distributing the accumulated impact. So there is no really concrete answer, but at this point, based on the research we have done so far, I wouldn't expect the historical trend could be changing, but perhaps we could observe some kinks, some humps in the following 3 to 5 years. But it also depends on lots of other demographic factors like the age of the person, and the cancer survival is changing depending the type of cancer, age of person, the resilience of the person, and so on.
And then just one last question. Did you have? It's already asked? Or? Okay, great. Well, we might call that there, and any other Q&A we'll get to at the panel. So thank you, Ayse.